Hello YouTube, this is Capandball here, your favorite gun channel on YouTube in beautiful bright Hungarish language. And the only YouTube channel in beautiful bright Hungarish language. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special day for me today because I'm holding a rifle in my hands that was made in Budapest, my hometown. Ladies and gentlemen, this percussion Schützen rifle, a fancy percussion Schützen rifle in very good quality, was made by Anton Zoller, a very famous Hungarian gunsmith in Pest by the 1870s, 1880s. But there are not too many Hungarian gunsmiths that are known all over the world. In fact, there is one family only, the Kirner family, who are known internationally. And in this video, I'm trying to get the reasons behind why the Hungarian gunsmiths were not able to get international awareness, while they could deliver the same quality as the Western competitors. But before we go on, let me thank you for your support. Your donation through Patreon or buying our Capandball products like the authentic American Civil War percussion revolver cartridge boxes or percussion revolver cartridge formers, or our US Arsenal Stadias, or our rubber printing plates for Arsenal bundles, or flintlock authentic tools, or our powder measure sets. They all help to keep the quality of our channel high. Without you, this would be much more difficult. So thank you very much again. This is the story of Matthias Zoller and Anton Zoller, two brothers, two gunsmiths, excellent gunsmiths, making target rifles and target pistols, born in Torontál County, Bánát region, the southern part of Hungary. And of course, this is the story of the Hungarian small-scale, small industry gunsmithing business, and also the story of this beautiful percussion target rifle that we are going to see on the range as well, of course, because this is a Capandball video. The Schützen rifle is a rifle designed for offhand standing target shooting. In fact, in the 1870s, 1880s, the muzzle-loading target rifles were still used, effectively used for competitions, where the slow-loading process was just not an issue. This is a 35 caliber small bore rifle. In millimeters, it is 8.9 millimeter. The barrel is 80 centimeters long, and the twist rate is 1 turn is 33 inches, and this is already designed for conical balls, short conical bullets, or probably patched picket balls. The gun itself was made at the very end of the percussion era, at the early 1870s. A good proof of this is the gold inlay on the barrel, meaning acélcső, which means cast steel barrel. And also it says Zoller Antal Budapest. Well, Budapest is of course the city, the location where it was made. Buda and Pest was unified in 1873, which means that this rifle was made after the unification, so probably at the middle of the 70s, something like that, that's my guess. The stock of the rifle is made of oiled walnut, it's a half stock. The barrel is held in the stock with a wedge, and the hook, it's a pattern breech by the way, it's a very modern pattern breech. Modern, it was 70 years, that concept was 70 years old by that time. It has a high comb for a secure hold of your face, and also has a beautiful comfortable cheek piece on the other side. The rifle has a thumb rest, which means that you can completely free your trigger finger for your trigger work. And also we have a highly curved hooked butt plate, which is a good sign that this rifle was designed for offhand standing shooting. The rifle itself is highly decorated. All the metal parts are engraved, and we have gold inlays on the barrel and also in some other places of the stock as well, because we have a wolf's head here, beautiful wolf's head with golden eyeball, and we have an old man's face here at the fore end, also with golden eyeballs. I just love these little parts. I usually don't really like decorated guns, but as this is a Budapest-made gun, I have to make an exception. The rifle is equipped with a well-designed aperture sight that shows strong Swiss influence. Finding a bullet for an original rifle is never easy. But this time I thought I was lucky, because my Pedersoli Bristlem Morges rifle has exactly the same caliber. So I could start my trials with the Pedersoli bullet. The projectile is sized exactly to bore diameter. My first charge is the same that I use for the Pedersoli rifle. It is 30 grains of 3F Swiss powder. These are the first shots, and the rifle starts to group well. So it looks like it will have the load, of course, but this projectile is just too long. So I have to get a new shorter projectile for the rifling twist, because the rifling twist is around 130 and 32 inches. Let's talk about the gun industry in Hungary in the 19th century. If they could deliver the quality, because they could deliver the quality, what is the reason why we do not know their names on international levels today? Well, the reason is simple, because they were not able to produce quantities. Because the guild system was tying them down and they were not able to evolve into manufactories and to factories. Gunmakers were part of the locksmiths guild. They had excellent production facilities, gun shops in Buda and Pest, of course, the capital cities, but also in the northern part of the country. For example, Pozsony. Pozsony was very known for its good gunsmiths. Now it is Bratislava. It is in Slovakia. Or there was Kassa as well, with beautiful gunsmiths. Kassa is now Košice, also in Slovakia today. But the guild system just prevented them from growing into real, capable production facilities. The guilds existed from the Middle Ages. It was an autonomic organization for the defense of the interest of the masters of the profession. It had very strict rules. And it was not bad for them, because they were protecting their business, of course, with limiting the number of gun makers, for example, to enter the business. It was a closed system, based on passing the knowledge, the secrets of the profession, from master to trainee, by practical training. The career of a 10 to 14 years of child started with 3-4 years of apprenticeship. After this, he was freed by the master to become a journeyman. Usually it was mandatory for the journeyman to travel abroad to gather experience. This was another 2, 3, 4 years. After this, he settled in one city and started to work for a master again. After the master felt that he is ready for the own business, and there was space for the own business, then he was, let's say, freed again. He could join the guild. But before joining the guild, he had to create the masterpiece that was judged by the best gunsmiths of the guild. But the guild was not really interested in creating countless number of concurrent masters, so passing the master's exam was not an easy job, and it took a long time. Often it took decades. This is why many of the journeymen just stayed outside the guild and continued their profession without being member of the guild. Now they were the Kontars. Pedersoli is offering 2 bullet molds for the Bristol Moses rifle. The other one is a mini mold. This one is easy to modify. I just had to turn a new base pin to have a shorter bullet. The slower twist rate requires a bullet that is lighter and shorter, and this one is 25% lighter than the previous one. I suppose that due to the mini base, I can also reduce the powder charge a bit. The bullet is sized again to the exact bore diameter. And this is the first attempt with the new bullet. The powder charges 24 grains of 3F Swiss powder. And now we have perfectly round holes, which means that the length of the bullet and the twist rate of the bore is harmonized. And the difference was only a few millimeters. Here are the 2 projectiles. One is a short mini, the other one is a long ball with flat base. Now, this was 24 grains of 3F Swiss powder. Now we have to find the right load for this new bullet. But let's get back now to Hungary. Hungary was very low on industrialization in the 19th century. The manufactories appeared in the 16th century. The mechanized factories appeared in the 18th century in Western Europe. But in Hungary, there were only very few in the 19th or 18th century, and they were serving the agriculture mainly. There were government efforts to reduce the power of the guilds, but up until 1860 they remained nearly in full power. While, in the meantime, the masters, they delivered excellent quality firearms that matched the quality of the Western counterparts. But they were just not able to evolve into large-scale facilities, production facilities, like in Western Europe. The small number of skilled workforce was also a huge problem, because the guilds were not really interested in increasing the number of the trainees as well, because they just did not want to spread the knowledge that they were keeping as a secret. So even if there was the will to establish a large-scale factory to produce firearms, they lacked the proper workforce for this. And that's the first step in increasing the powder charge. The new charge is 30 grains of 3F Swiss powder. And that's another 5 shots, ladies and gentlemen. I have a flyer, but that was me. I felt that I'm not in the right position when I was firing that shot. I have 4 shots, let's say, in the size of the 10 ring, which is good, but still not good enough for competition grade quality. So we have to improve the accuracy, so I'm going to increase the powder again. Politics was also an issue. The reform era, starting from the 1820s up until the revolution against the Habsburg in 1848-49, it was a great leap forward, but not enough at all. The guilds, they served the Hungarian freedom fighting army, which means that after the war their shops were destroyed, their licenses were of course withdrawn, and the workers scattered. After the revolution and the freedom fights, it was not easy to regain the licenses, the firearms making licenses and the firearms licenses, because the government was just afraid from the rebel Hungarians. It took many years to restart the businesses. The Habsburg Empire, however, struggled to remain a capable military and political power within Europe in the 1850s and 60s. After losing the war of 1859 against the Sark-Piemontese kingdom and France, and losing the war against Prussia in 1866, Hungary became an important hinterland. So the industrial development of Hungary was inevitable. This was the point when in 1859 Franz Joseph I issued a decree that finally freed most of the professions from the guild system. The Great Compromise between Austria and Hungary in 1867 was a good point, because it just boosted the industrialization of Hungary. But the Hungarian gunsmiths, they already lost the initiative against the highly skilled and industrialized Austrian, Belgian, British gunmakers. They were just not able to deliver that kind of quality in that kind of quantity, which resulted that by the end of the 19th century, nearly all the skilled Hungarian gunsmiths went out of business. And let's not forget that this is an extremely difficult period because of the extremely fast development of firearms as well. We are starting the century, the 19th century, with muzzle-loading flintlock arms fed with black powder, and we finish it with automatic, semi-auto and repeating rifles firing self-contained cartridges with smokeless powder and jacketed bullets. This is a huge leap forward. The concept of interchangeability, the use of cast steel, they all required highly industrialized ventures.
Increasing the charge seemed like a good direction, so this time I'm charging 36 grains of 3F Swiss powder.
And this is 36 grains of 3F Swiss powder, ladies and gentlemen. And the group got a little tighter from a horizontal point of view, which is, I would say, from a horizontal point of view, this is excellent. But from the vertical point of view, it is still, let's say, probably a bit better, but probably rather the same. This was the first shot, and I felt that the rifle was not in a good position in my shoulder, so I just eliminated this shot, which comes to a 4-shot group, which is nearly at the size of the inner 10, and I have one flyer, but still all the 5 shots are within the size of the 10 ring, so this is a good load. 36 grains of 3F powder is a good load. It is a good question what is causing this vertical deviation, and I think that I have some rough spots in the bore that probably will have to be cleaned, because as I push the bullet down, I feel it's a bit too tight, or I will just have to size the bullet 1/1000th of an inch smaller than currently it is, and probably that will solve the problem. But this is a very good group. This is a very good group from an old rifle like this. Let's do some offhand shooting. Let's talk a bit about the sport shooting, the history of sport shooting in Hungary. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a more than 500 years old sport in my country, because the first gun clubs were formed in Upper Hungary in the very early years of the 16th century. This was the most crowded part of the most developed part of the country. And the royal boroughs here, they all had their own gun clubs. They were based on the guild system as well, by the way. The central and the southern part of the country, that was for 150 years occupied by the Turks, so gun clubs were not established there, of course. After the expulsion of the Turks from the central and the southern part of the country in the end of the 17th century, early 18th century, small gun clubs appeared all over the country, but they were not as popular there like their German counterparts, or like in Switzerland or in Bohemia, but they existed intermittently, but they existed. But from the Reform age, from the 1820s, there was a new initiative to increase the number of gun clubs, because they were the center of the political speech. After the fall of the freedom fights in 1849, of course, these clubs were banned for many years, but from the early 60s it was possible to slowly re-establish the clubs and start over the sport shooting activities all over the country, mainly in Buda and in Pest. It is very interesting to read about what kind of competitions they were shooting, and we have a very good source for this, because in 1871 the National Shooting Federation was established by 17 shooting clubs from all over the country, and this was the first time when they standardized the shooting rules. There were 2 classes, civilian and military. One entry fee allowed you to shoot once on the target, and entry fees were not cheap, so you had to be a very good shooter. But if you paid that entry fee again, then you could shoot another shot. So there were not multiplied shots like shooting 10 or 15 or 13 shots on the target like we do today. Both military and civilian competitions were shot in the standing position, the offhand position, and for the civilian competitions, the shooting distance was 175 meters, and the target was 1.5 by 1.2 meters with a 30 centimeter black area as an aiming mark. These targets, they could be shot with military rifles and also with civilian rifles, any rifles. The military class could only be shot with service rifles. The distance was 300 meters, position standing, offhand of course, and the size of the target was 2 meter by 1.2 meters. And the black aiming mark in the center was 90 centimeter by 40 centimeter, so it was oval. Loading the muzzle-loading rifles was only possible behind the firing line at the loading benches, and they were kept only in the firing line. Loading the breech loaders, now that was done in the firing line, so you could not load the breech loader at the loading benches. This was a very important time, because the muzzle loaders, up until the end of the 19th century, they were competing against or with the breech loaders. And from the accuracy point of view, there was no difference. And there was a third type of competition that was called the prize targets, or as the Germans call it, the Ehrenscheibe. They were highly decorated, painted targets that were shot by the shooters. Of course, you had to pay the entrance fee, but a portion of this entrance fee went to the winner of the competition, winner of the target, like the one I have here. This beautiful target on the wall of my office was made in 1851 in Hungary, and it was never shot, so it's a virgin target, with a beautiful white fallow deer in the center.
Having a good group from the bench is a minimum requirement, but the real trial is offhand shooting. Here are the first 5 shots with 36 grains of 3F Swiss powder.
And ladies and gentlemen, that makes Capandball very happy. Out of the 5 shots, I have 4 in the size of the 10 group. Well, a bit more than the size of the 10 group. But that means that the rifle is accurate. This is pretty close to the group I shot from the rest, which means that this is what the rifle at the current status is capable of. I'm going to make a new sizer for my bullets, so they will go down in the bore a bit easier than currently. But anyway, this is already quite good. This is already quite good. Now, when I want to improve my group, I will wear my shooting jackets. That's a modern shooting jacket. This is what we wear on MLIC competitions. I will wear my shooting boots and also shooting gloves on my left hand, which will stabilize my hold, and probably it will shrink my group to be really under the 10 size group ring. To be competitive in international levels, you have to reach at least 97, 98, 99 with an original rifle like this, because there are quite a few shooters who can actually do the 100 on competition as well with original rifles. That means that out of the 10 shots, they hit the 10 times, which is just excellent. This is what we love about muzzle loading, that even these rifles seem primitive and seem old, they can still do the job. They are excellent guns.
Let's talk a bit about the origin of the Zoller family. The Zoller family was a German-speaking family that settled in the Banat region, the southern border of Hungary, after it was reoccupied from the Ottoman Empire in the beginning of the 18th century. The German-speaking families here, they were mainly craftsmen. Anton, or Anton Zoller, was the older brother. He was born in 1816 in Béga-Szentgyörgy, or Szent Katreinfeld, a small village near to Béga-Szentgyörgy. This little village is today in Serbia, and it has a statue of Rocky Balboa, ladies and gentlemen, probably the only one in Europe. Most probably he spent his apprentice years in Nagybecskerek, this is the capital of Torontál County, but as a journeyman he left the country and settled in Switzerland. Anton, or Anton Zoller, was the older brother. He was born in 1816 in Béga-Szentgyörgy, or Szent Katreinfeld, a small village near to Béga-Szentgyörgy. This little village is today in Serbia, and it has a statue of Rocky Balboa, ladies and gentlemen, probably the only one in Europe. Most probably he spent his apprentice years in Nagybecskerek, this is the capital of Torontál County, but as a journeyman he left the country and settled in Switzerland. He started working as a gunsmith in 1845 in Frauenfeld, canton of Thurgau. He started working as a gunsmith in the canton of Thurgau in Frauenfeld in 1845, and in 1850 he received citizenship and started his own gunsmithing business in Frauenfeld. According to Stöckel, a beautiful summary of nearly all the gunsmiths of Europe and the world, he was working in Frauenfeld up until 1869. He was working for the arsenal of the canton of Thurgau. He submitted many concepts for modernizing the old smoothbore muskets, and he even submitted concepts for breech-loading guns. And on the other hand, he also converted a lot of 1851 model Feldstützers for the Swiss army with the Milbank-Amsler conversion method. So he was quite a well-known gunsmith by that time in Switzerland. Anton Zoller was an enthusiastic sport shooter. He took part on nearly all the big shooting competitions, international shooting competitions of Europe. In 1871 he moved back to Hungary, and in Budapest he started his own gunsmithing shop. Finding a good location for a gunsmith shop is just as a good challenge as today. Being close to the city center and to a shooting range was a must. Anton Zoller started his gunsmith shop in Király Street 70. It was quite a good location, as he was very close to his brother's gunsmith shop in Akácfa Street. Close to the center, but in industrial zone. And these locations were very close to the only shooting range on the Pest side. But after a few years he decided to move to the Buda side, probably to be able to cover both sides of the city. He opened a new gunsmith shop in Fő Street 26. I think that his gun shop did not go too well. There are very few advertisements in the newspapers that are published by Anton Zoller. This is one mark. And the second is that he left a testament in 1895. And in this testament he states that he is a poor man and he cannot leave too many things for his grandsons and sons. The younger brother, Mátyás or Matthias Zoller, was born in 1823 in Béga-Szentgyörgy as his brother. He was the eighth children of the family. Probably he started his career in Nagybecskerek as well, but as a journeyman he did not leave the country. He went to Pest and he worked for the best Hungarian gunsmith of that era, József Kirner the Elder. So he learned really from the best in Hungary. Which means that the two family members had an excellent experience. One was learning from the best Hungarian gunmaker, and the other one learned the business and learned gunmaking in Switzerland. He started his own venture in 1860, when the profession was finally freed from the guild system. He started his own workshop under Akácva Street 61, and he stayed here up until the end of his life. So from this point, anybody who could prove valuable experience in gunmaking could open a gun shop in Hungary. We have a very good source for understanding the size of his gunsmith shop. He died in 1891 and an inventory was made about his belongings. We don't see too many machines here. These tools could only serve 3 to 4 persons. That's a good proof of an artisan gunsmith shop. Just like his brother, he was also an avid sport shooter. The contemporary newspapers are full of Matthias Zoller's achievements. And when Franz Josef visited Hungary in 1880 to take part on the opening ceremony of the new shooting range of Pest, he was the one who was loading the rifle for the Emperor and King. Matthias was also an expert for the contemporary gun magazines and hunting magazines of Pest and Buda. And he was also an important player in the protection of the rights, the interests of the gunmakers of Hungary. And in this position he was working very close to József Kirner up until his death in 1891. The other gun I'd like to show you was made by Matthias Zoller, the younger brother. And this rifle is a special rifle in my collection because I never buy a gun that I cannot shoot, but this definitely isn't ruins. And I would never buy a rifle like this unless it was made by Matthias Zoller. This used to be a beautiful Schützen rifle as well. A good proof of this is diopter. I will show you this later, what a beautiful feature it has. According to the gold inlay on the barrel, the rifle was made before the unification of Pest and Buda. This means it was made between 1860 and 73. The rifle is equipped with covered front sight and set trigger system. The caliber is the Swiss 10.4 mm. An interesting feature of the aperture rear sight, that it has a folding brass frame for a dioptric lens, something you don't see too often on 19th century rifles. Let's see the new load. 6 grains of Swiss powder, the shorter bullet, shorter mini bullet, size 2, 342-343, so around 2 thousandths smaller than the previous one. Let's see how it goes down. Oh, much smoother. That's it. And this is the final trial of the rifle. Shot exactly the way we shoot the Vetterli discipline on international matches. Any rifle, pistol target, 50 meters, 13 shots and 10 shots count only. The best shooters score 100 in this discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the first 5 shots in the competition style, in the Schützen style, as I'm going to shoot on international matches, and it is very, very promising. The good group got much tighter. I have 3 shots in the size of the inner 10, one at the left that is still in the size of the 10 ring, and I have one flyer here, but that was absolutely not the rifle. It was more. So the load is okay, the rifle is okay. I will still have to make it more comfortable, and I will have to do something with the sights. The stock is just too short for me, so I will have to add some leather padding here. Of course it's a removable leather padding, I'm not modifying anything on the rifle. And the other thing I will have to do is the sight is too high, so I will have to modify the front sight. The rifle was designed for larger distance shooting, so I will need a taller front sight to have it centered. Today there are not too many Zoller guns I know about. I think there can be, let's say, 20-25 pieces altogether in private collectors and in state-owned collections as well. Most of them are target guns, pistols, but mainly rifles, both for Zoller Matthias and both for Zoller Anton. The largest collection of Zoller guns are in the Hungarian state-owned collections, like in the Hungarian National Museum, like in the Museum of Agriculture and the Museum of Military History of Budapest. They worth a visit, ladies and gentlemen, because you have to see these beautiful target guns. Comparing Matthias's and Anton's rifles, we can see light differences. Matthias made a bit more robust rifles. They were probably designed for more heavy use. Anton's rifles, they were lighter, more elegant, more streamlined. Probably he was following more the Western style of gun making than his younger brother Matthias. But one thing for sure, they worked together. Anton visited Hungary even in the time period when he was working in Switzerland. Many times we came for shooting competitions, and probably these were the times, the occasions when he brought some new raw materials, new tools or new knowledge for his brother. But altogether they both were making excellent firearms by that time. By the eve of the smokeless powder, the small-scale businesses, the small production methods, they were not competitive anymore. The higher pressure of the new propellant, the semi-auto repeating and automatic firing systems, they needed a highly industrialized production method. The only chance to survive for an artisan gunsmith like the Zollers or like the Kirners was to buy parts from large-scale manufacturers and assemble the guns from them. This was the first step. The second step was just to buy the complete guns and probably put some marks on it. But this was really the end of the highest quality Hungarian small industry gun making.
The Zoller brothers were the kings of the target guns of Pest and Buda. Although their name is not known all over the world, they contributed a lot to the gun culture of my country.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. You've been watching the Capandball YouTube channel. If you like what I do, then please subscribe, like, comment and share. This will help the channel to grow. If you wish to support us, you can do it through Patreon or by buying the Capandball products. They are authentic Capandball products. You can do it from our eBay store or from the capandball.com website. That's our website. That's our homepage, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.